Hey everyone, we are back for another week of exciting rehearsals. This week, we kick off Women's History Month with an incredible interview with Amanda DeFrees from the Femme Forte podcast. Sam Mohler joins us as our guest host to talk all things social media. We will also find out what made Steven say,
I've worked them. They now know that I want like a high standard on their vids.
And why Trish said,
I am. I don't know if I could top last week's, but I'm definitely going to give it a shot.
Last week's was all this and more. So get out on the field and we will see you back on the sidelines for this week's episode of On a Water Break.
8 off the mat and go. Welcome to On a Water Break, the podcast where we talk everything marching arts.
Everyone, bring it in.
It's time for a water break.
Welcome to another episode of season 2 of On a Water Break, the podcast where we talk about everything you and your friends are talking about at rehearsal on a water break. I'm Jackie Brown. This week we have another action-packed episode. Oh my gosh. We kick off Women's History Month with a woman who is literally making history in her new podcast, Femme Forte, Amanda DeFrees. I can say I'm very excited because I got to talk to her personally with Ashlee, and she is just something else. She is a force to be reckoned with out there, and I think Femme Forte is the absolute perfect name for her podcast, I gotta say. This week, also, we have our guest host, Sam, to talk all of the fun things going on in social media and the marching arts. So if you don't follow Sam on social media, you're definitely going to want to after this interview. But first, let's see who's on the sidelines this week. Steven, we're letting the boys back into the
Jackie?
play this week.
Yeah, I'm 26 now. I got a little rowdy. Missed last week's episode. Thank you. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. It'll be a fun one. Good to be back.
Emily, how did the Super Bowl uniform picks go?
Oh yeah, I totally remembered there was a thing called the Super Bowl that sort of happened over the weekend. But as per a tradition that I started in my own brain, I like doing like fantasy NFL band things. And I think you guys can see them both on my social, and also so you can see it on the Water Break social. I actually don't know which one people liked more. I didn't actually get a consensus on that.
Jeremy said he checked on it, and he was pretty sure the Chiefs won that also.
They won that too. Awesome. Okay. I had to update
Taylor
it.
Swift is unstoppable.
I had to update it. There's an older version. I was like, well, I can't just keep uploading the same thing over and over again if the Chiefs are going to keep doing this well. Anyway, check them out. I hope you like it. Maybe you'll have some constructive feedback on how to either do a uniform or not.
Oh, I'm going to have to call Brent. Be like, hey, Brent, go check this out. See what he thinks of it. No pressure or anything, though. Trish, are you ready for your what are we doing this week?
I am. I don't know if I could top last week's, but I'm definitely going to give it a shot.
Last week's was really good.
And I have my kids on it now, too, because we did a little dry run Friday night at rehearsal on, going from the different warm-ups. And I said to them, when somebody says good luck, what is your response? And they said, thanks, you too.
It's so easy. We talked about it last week. Guys, if you want to hear the whole thing, listen to last week's episode. It's so important. It's so good for our whole community to understand. Cindy, I heard something going on about stickers, and I love stickers. So
yeah.
Can you elaborate?
I mean, Leander Mama needs some merch, and so me and Jeremy got together, and he created some Leander Mama stickers for me. I will be in Austin in a few weeks for WGI, and so there might be something going on with some stickers and handing those out, and so hopefully I'll have more information about that
at WGI Austin. Trade. Let's trade some stickers.
Yeah, like they used to trade pins.
Yes.
Then we can trade stickers. I know. Everybody loves a good sticker.
It's true. I actually, during COVID, I did a huge draw to I basically was like, hey, anybody, if you send me a self-addressed stamped envelope, I will send you free Spintronic stickers. And so people did this, and it was so cute because some of them were like kids like learning how to address envelopes for the first time, and they're like messaging me and being like, "How do I write this address on an envelope and send it to you?" And so it was just so sweet. I love stickers.
I know everybody loves stickers. I have a feeling that I'm going to be handing them out like crazy at the Austin WGI.
I love it. Well, we have kept him on the sidelines long enough. It's time to meet our guest host, Sam Mohler. Hi.
Hello. Is this where I start my life story, or is that going to count? Okay.
Actually, you're pretty close. You can just jump into it. Yeah, let's give you the 8 and then hit us with your 32 count life story.
Okay, so I've spent a total of 4 summers with a drum corps. This will be my 5th. I spent 3 seasons doing indoor. I was a conductor for the Colts. I played trumpet for the Colts. I was on their admin team. I was a middle school band director for 4 years, and I don't do that anymore because I didn't like it. I was, for the Blue Knights last summer, the photographer and the TikTok content creator, and now I'm doing that for Santa Clara Vanguard this upcoming summer. And then in April, I'm going to be joining the media team for WGI Championships.
Woohoo!
Wow.
It's like right on time.
Very, very full 32 counts, yes. Nice. That's impressive. You've been doing a lot of drum corps indeed. And you do a lot of social media stuff too. What sparked your initial interest to really do more in drum corps social media?
So I've actually been doing stuff in social media in general since I had to think about it. I think I was either 7 or 8 years old when I started, which is, I know, like really scary if you're a parent with kids who have access to the internet. But I'd say when I was in, I think 3rd grade was the first time I started making things on the internet. I think I made my first video. I made my first video using PowerPoint. So like I know. I didn't know how to use like an editing software, so I would put pictures and set the slides to like time them to music, make sure they like lined up.
Yeah.
But I've been doing this. I'm 28 years old, so it's been like 20 years of making things for the internet. I think I started learning Photoshop when I was about 9 years old.
Oh my gosh.
It's always interested me, like as long as I've been able to, read and write. But as far as band social media, like band ended up being my passion in life. So it was inevitable that I combine those two things. The funny story, I think the first time I ever went viral on social media, like had a video hit like 1 million views, I think I was 10.
Oh my God.
Wait, tell us about that real quick.
I was doing edited stuff when I was in middle school, and I had popular YouTube channels back then that had to do with like video games or whatever I was into at the time.
Whoa.
Wow.
In middle school. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The internet was such a different place too.
It was a different place. It was a lot, I don't know if I would say less forgiving. I would say it was like a darker time almost on the internet.
Yeah. I think it's like the wild, wild west when like you get back to like 2008.
Absolutely.
It's like it was lawless and there were a lot of outlaws.
A lot of people hiding in mama's basement.
That's impressive though. So you've really been doing it for a long time and you've made a lot of different content. Like where do you come up with all the different ideas for like the posts that you make and the content you create?
So I've had a few people ask me this, and it's really something I've had to think about. Right now my main focus is Santa Clara Vanguard. So I do, like, we had a big Valentine's post yesterday that I did. But with Vanguard, I had a few days ago where I'll sit down and just write like as many things down in a Google Doc. I think I have like a 5-page Google Doc for ideas just for this upcoming summer for Vanguard of stuff we might end up doing or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very methodical way of doing things. A lot of it is like I'll have a lot of clips. I have like a whole library of show clips and sounds and stuff like that. And I'll just start throwing stuff together and see if something comes out of it or if I come up with something. As for the bit I do where I like tell totally false stories about the activity, which is how most people. Yeah, that's how like most people find my page. And that's how I've gotten those kinds of videos were actually how I've started working in the activity.
Huh.
So
Making
like
stuff
Vanguard,
up.
yeah, telling lies. It gets you paid.
Yeah.
But very much as far as those videos, I'll see like a comment or something that inspires one, but it's not. As for those, there's not. It's hard. There's not like a very methodical way of doing it. It's very much like
Right.
I tend to just make what I would want to see. I mean, like, man, it'd be funny if there was a video that said this, and then I'm like, oh wait, I can just do that. Like
Well,
that's
yeah,
usually
it's
how it
funny you
goes.
say that. I feel like for a long time, like social media in drum corps was kind of very like stocky and very like straight and narrow. And like when you see groups actually do something funny because they let someone that's actually kind of a content creator run their page for them instead of like, I don't know, some person on the admin team.
Media teams I think a big thing there is that media teams in drum corps are a recent thing. So I remember when I marched in 2016, like maybe I think the Seattle Cascades had a photographer, the Cadets had a photographer, Blue Devils has always had a media team. It was BD360 is what it was called back then.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, most drum corps just did not have a media team. And so it's kind of a recent development to have like paid professionals on staff who are experts in social media and study social media algorithms and content that resonates with the activity and people in the activity. And I think that's why we've seen that big shift in just the past few years. Because now I think basically every drum corps has at least one media professional on staff. And that's been a big change.
Do you think there's any focus on like making content that resonates with people that aren't in the drum corps community? Because I know you're making good content for the drum corps community, but what about like content that's generally viral?
As for myself or for like
maybe just in general, do you feel like organizations are trying to do that?
We saw a big interest in that with what Blue Stars was doing last summer. If any of you are familiar with the Blue Stars TikTok, which
we actually interviewed them over the summer too.
Oh, really?
So if go back and listen to the Blue Stars social media team podcast. That was great.
If you're on the drum corps TikTok algorithm, I'm sure a Blue Stars video has popped up at some point. But they have, I think one of their videos last summer hit like 7 million views, something crazy.
Whoa.
So they had stuff that was going outside the community, which was really neat. You know, whether that leads to people finding drum corps, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it is cool when that happens. I remember on Reddit, there was like a drill move from Carolina Crown that was like on the front page of Reddit for an entire day.
Wow.
And, you know, it was called, marching band does a cool move. This was Crown 2013. They had like a rotating triangle, something like that. It was really neat. But I see it happens occasionally. Yeah. The year before the Space Pants. So the purple pants. Yeah.
The purple pants.
I think they did a similar move in both.
Purple pant era.
But I remember seeing a comment that said, this is why people don't like watching American football, because you have so much going on that has nothing to do with the sport itself. And there's always just like a big misunderstanding of what we do and how it ties into sports when it, inevitably gets out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. Never really thought about that, but when it gets outside of the band community, people don't really know what they're watching.
Yeah,
they have no clue.
They don't.
I live in Los Angeles and I work in film sets. And so typically after you wrap a shoot on a film, it's courtesy to follow everyone else that you worked with on Instagram. And I always feel bad for what these people are about to get themselves into when they do the courtesy follow, because then a week later I'll come back and they're like, man, I've learned so much about marching band against my will.
Yes.
And that's like, that's like the only thing I post about. So.
Oh, that's funny, because I have the same thing happen to me. People are like, you post a lot of marching band stuff. Like, I didn't know you were so into that. And it's like, yeah, well, we have a whole community of obsessed former marching band people, and we are not a small community. We are a force to be reckoned with.
True dat. I mean, aren't we all guilty of having way too much marching band / guard content on our socials anyway?
Never.
Hey, when I remember to post, it's usually about band.
That's all I post.
Yeah, right.
So on Instagram, I have a personal account and I have a drum corps account. And I was like, okay, anything that has nothing to do with band will go on my personal page. And just over time, I've realized that I do so little that has nothing to do with band that like that page is like defunct now. Like nothing goes on there.
It's so true. I have 281 followers on my personal account and almost 20,000 on my band.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't realize you had quite that many followers. It's been a while since I've been to your page.
Yeah. Well, there was a Christmas video that is still going viral. And,
wow.
It's nice. It's band, though. It's band related.
It's band. That's cool.
I feel like I'm in like the eternal building phase. I don't know. It's just like, it's kind of hard. Like, I think it's awesome that y'all are like, gaining all this traction in the media. Like, I love watching that. But sometimes, as a small budding content creator, I guess, it's just kind of hard to see like what that will look like in the future. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I still have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, Sam, what would you tell Emily for her growth of her page? Because you've done so much in social media. You kind of understand a lot of the algorithms and things like that. What should Emily and really any of our listeners who are kind of in the same situation, if you're a content creator and you're not getting traction and you want to grow, where would be a good place to start?
So I think that Vanguard will be the second drum corps that I've done social media for. And I think that when drum corps hire me specifically, like they know what they're getting into, which is that this will be, I also ran, I did TikTok for the Ionic Winter Guard in Missouri, which Jackie, I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that was where I got started. That was the first one I did.
Okay.
But what I found is that, especially if you're targeting Gen Z, which is typically what I'm doing when I'm doing this stuff, they very much want to be entertained first and foremost. They don't like being sold to. Yeah, they don't like being. So a good example of that is Duolingo. The Duolingo TikTok, the Duolingo Instagram has such little to do with what the app actually provides as a service. It's just funny content. And so I've always kind of operated under like, let's get our name out there first, and then maybe people will start to figure out what we do. Rather than like, hey, if I tell everyone what we do, I'm kind of just shouting into the void. Versus like, hey, if I start by making jokes, I'll gain followers, and then you can kind of rope them into what you do. So like my Instagram media account primarily, 99% of what I post is like my actual like art style content, like photos or videos I've made for bands. And then if you go to the Reels page, there's like Reels with 200,000 views that are just like total nonsense. But every time I post one of those, it's like, I start gaining followers very quickly versus, posting photos. But like those followers are still seeing what I'm posting. So that's kind of the approach I've always taken is selling, trying to start by selling something doesn't really work.
Very good advice. I thank you. And I'm pretty sure, like Jackie said, a lot of other listeners probably, would appreciate that advice too. Why, thank you, social media expert Sam.
Well, and if you also might find that it just happens by accident. Like in my case, it just completely. Sam, you probably set out maybe not to have so many followers, and it blew up, and then people started noticing you and said, "Hey, would you run our social media account?" And I don't know if that's how it happened for you, but I can see how that would be the case.
I take a very so the creative process isn't super methodical, but I take a very, very methodical approach to how I actually put stuff out or how I edit it. So like with the videos where I tell information about shows that isn't true or seasons that isn't true, I'm very much considering like I try to always make sure a TikTok is no more than 15 or 20 seconds. Because after that, there's not much incentive to stay there.
You lose them.
Yeah, you lose them fast.
Mm-hmm.
But that and yeah, I mean, saying incorrect things is like, unfortunately, one of the fastest ways to get engagement. Or like if you want to get engagement fast, use the wrong form of there or use the wrong form of your, because people are going to comment.
Oh wow,
and those are just like those are like some cheat codes to gaining engagement on social media. Is like, be wrong, because people want to they really want to correct you. They want to tell you that you're stupid. And so if you just are like, you just accept like, sure, I'll just make myself look stupid, and some people are going to take me seriously and think I'm dumb. That's something I'm just willing to accept.
That's
one of our most viral TikToks we've ever had was actually a blooper. We were doing like a quick change dress, 24 million views on the blooper because the dress didn't work properly. One of the dresses in the background didn't work properly. And like, they were like, oh, you left her hanging. How could you do that to that poor girl? And it was like, well, we did it again. We posted the actual one and it was great and it was beautiful and everybody's dresses worked, but the blooper,
they didn't care about that one.
Yeah.
People like it when you mess up. They just do. That's what people want to see. They want to see the fails. They just
fail compilations. Yes.
That's crazy. Well, I could definitely ask you all day long for tips and tricks on social media.
Sure.
We'll probably be back on it later. I bet we get back into it. But for now, let's hit these gush and goes.
Great job, everyone. Set your equipment down. Gush and go.
Steven, do you want to kick it off? Do your gush and go?
Oh boy.
First?
Yeah, I can. I guess I'll go right now, but that means I'm freestyling because I was expecting to have a minute. No, I've been working hard on video assignments this week. Like on the other end of the table now that I'm teaching in like a world-class line, where now my kids are submitting me these videos and they're putting in the effort because I've worked them. They now know that I want like a high standard on their vids. So now I have to like commit back forth this same amount of work, which has been like, it's a challenge, but it's kind of rewarding. Something I was talking to them a lot this week was like performing and how you can treat performance maybe more like a dialogue between you and the audience. So I had them writing almost like a whole essay in like the Facebook comments in this private Facebook group as they like watch back their own videos and stuff and reflect on their own performance and how they can have a more clear dialogue to the audience now that they get to watch themselves. Many of them are now realizing like, oh, maybe I'm kind of like visually mumbling rather than having
a good term.
Yeah, I've been trying to like push it on them, but I'm kind of liking doing this like more complicated work on video comments because then I can actually take the time, takes me a lot of time, but take the time to write out a response that maybe does teach them how they can view performing differently rather than just like perform. I feel like people are always told to perform, but then they don't have a clue what that means. So it's cool. It's like I'm finding a different medium to teach through by taking the video assignments just as seriously as a tech that I did as a student.
I love that concept. That's beautiful.
Cool. I had fun with it. It took me hours, but I had fun.
Emily, what do you want to gush and go on about this week?
Yes, since we're talking about social media and the history of the internet, apparently, I finally was able to see the song list for one of my other ensembles that I perform in. And one of them is like an old 2000s song called Every Time We Touch by Cascadia. And I just immediately thought of all of the early 2000s shipping AMVs. I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, it's great. And I think the arranger was self-aware about the meme status of the song, and I'm just so excited to be a meme this year.
I want to see all of that because when I marched Blue Stars, Every Time We Touch was the song that we did chasse passe overs to in Across the Floors every single time. It didn't matter the rest of the soundtrack, like no matter what we had worked on that whole dance block, that song would come on and we'd be like, okay, we're doing chasse passe overs. This is just what we're doing. Trish, what do you want to gush and go on about?
Oh.
True. What? What? Oh. Trish, you need to send us pictures so we can put them on the Instagram. Wow.
Aw.
You have to send us those pictures. I want them on the On a Water Break Instagram because, oh my gosh. Cindy, what do you want to gush about this week?
Well, I will be attending my first WGI event in Leander, which is appropriate. I've moved to Northwest Arkansas several years back, so I don't get back to Texas as much as I would like to, but my 25-year-old former band kid still lives there, and so I'd always try to go back for several events. But so I'm so excited to get my first look at like the Woodlands. Seeing them live is just so amazing, and of course the Scholastic A groups I love, and the open groups too. But it's always fun to get that first look at the Woodlands, and Johnson is still a world class, but I'm excited to see Origins and Invictus. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with Third Coast Independent. I think last year was their first year from Houston. This is, I believe, their second year. I think they dropped out of World Championships, which I'm sad about, but I am excited to get to see them live again. But the most exciting thing is there's a group from Colorado who's coming down. They're called Zenith.
Already?
I'm not familiar with Zenith. They're from Loveland, Colorado. And
Okay.
so it's so cool to see these groups outside of Texas venturing in. And I think we're going to see that more and more because, it's time. And Texas is a welcoming state, regardless of what they might see. They are a welcoming state. And so it's cool to see these groups venturing in. So I'm excited.
This is going to be fun. Well, Sam, you see how our Gush and Go segment works. Is there anything you would like to gush about this week?
Yeah, there's something cool I wanted to talk about that I don't know if people are super knowledgeable about, which is the interconnectedness of the drum corps media world. So the one thing, and I don't know how it works I've never taught drum corps, but the media crews, the media teams, we all have a giant group chat that we're all in.
Oh my gosh,
so
for real.
There's like 300 people in this chat.
Wow.
And we all know each other. So the competitiveness that naturally comes with this activity doesn't necessarily make its way into the media world at all. Like, we all love each other. Just this morning, I texted the guy who ran the Blue Stars TikTok last year for advice with what I'm doing for Vanguard. I know that the Blue Devils media team is someone I can always reach out to with questions. Just last night, I was like, hey, and this is something that's really cool. Phantom Regiment every year puts out a photo book of the summer. So they print like 300 photos in this really cool coffee table book.
Oh, wow.
And that's something that I've always thought would be cool to do with my own photos. So I asked Phantom's photographer, and like we had like an hour-long Zoom call last night where she showed me how to set that up. So it's just cool. There's no like gatekeeping knowledge in the media community within the marching arts. It's very much just like a bunch of band nerds that are way too into this, take it way too seriously. But like, first and foremost, we all just love doing it. So I know that like pretty much any other drum corps out there, probably all of them, anyone with a media team, like I can reach out or, run things by. Like if I have a question about, hey, how do you think this looks? I can ask the people at Boston Crusaders. Like, that's not something that, we all trust each other. We all trust each other's opinions. So that's just something that's cool. I don't know if people know that, but just know that like if your drum corps has a media team, just know they're talking to the other media teams like all the time.
That's awesome.
I wonder kind of like if that harkens back to like the roots of drum corps, because I know like drum corps is super competitive, but I kind of feel like that's probably because of how big it's gotten compared to like when it started, that maybe, more people knew each other way back in the day, and it was easier to like talk to each other and help each other out. And I don't know. That's really cool. I love that. I love that you say there's no gatekeeping of the knowledge.
Yeah, there's not. The thing I look forward to the most this summer is like seeing, I'll be counting down the days until I get to see my friends from Blue Devils or my friends from Phantom Regiment or, Blue Knights. Like that's something that I very much look forward to at shows. Like that's the most exciting thing about shows is when you're coming on the field, the other Jump Corps media team is coming off the field and you can be like, yo, what's up?
That's interesting because that's what it's like being in like a bass line, all the other bass drummers or the other corps. Like it's like you're the media team is a section and all the other people that are in that section.
Because most drum corps have on average, maybe 2 people doing media, maybe 1. Like I know with Vanguard there will be 2 media people on the road this summer. So like, we don't have these giant, like when I marched, we didn't have the 26-person trumpet section or whatever. Like between all of the world class or open class drum corps photographers, like in the grand scheme of things, there's not that many of us. So, every San Antonio free day, all of us get together and have lunch, stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool, man.
Hey, it's called Gush and Go, not Gush and Stay. Let's go.
Okay, everybody. Get back out in the field. The ladies are going to take over with our next interview with Amanda DeFrees from Femme Forte podcast and Ultimate Drill Book. So make sure you have your drop books ready. We are going to check all of them, but we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, it's Jeremy, and here are your announcements coming from the box. You want to drink up On a Water Break Lost in Translation with Cynthia Bernard, uncover the glitz and glamour of Twirlers with On a Water Break in Rhinestones hosted by Lexi Duda, get the insider scoop from the stands with On a Water Break from the stands with Cindy Berry, aka Leander Mama, and join the band family in On a Water Break family style with Stephanie Click, plus much more to come. Don't miss our recent episode celebrating Black History Month with insightful roundtables and amazing guests. And guess what? Women's History Month is just around the corner. Make sure to follow us on social media at On a Water Break for all the latest updates and bonus content. Got something to share or a burning question? Email us at onawaterbreakpodcast@gmail.com. So don't be the person that doesn't tell their friends about a water break. Make sure everyone stays hydrated. Okay, field staff, take it away.
Let's reset.
We have a very special guest clinician for you. I am hanging out on the sideline with Ashlee Tran. Hey, Ashlee.
Hey.
And we are talking to Amanda DeFrees from the Femme Forte podcast. Hello, Amanda. It's so nice to meet you.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to talk to you. We met because you have another podcast that's sort of marching arts related, but also kind of attends to the broader range of like the female experience in, the marching arts, in the professional world. But before we get into all of that crazy fun stuff, we have a tradition that we need to adhere to. It's called the 32 count life story. Basically, you're going to hear a metronome. It's going to give you 8 for free, and then you have 32 counts, which is about 30 seconds to tell us everything that's ever happened to you from the day you were born until now.
All righty. I'll see what I can do. Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I host a podcast called Femme Forte. I play drums. I did indoor with 5 points and crossband wins. I'm really passionate about women empowerment, about music and the arts. I am currently the director of media for Ultimate Drill Book. I live in Austin, Texas. I have a dog. I'm adopted from China, if that's important. I'm just really passionate about uplifting women in our space, as I believe that women I believe that women need to have more resources about how to elevate their career.
Yay! I think that is so great. And like I said, I met you through your podcast. So do you want to kind of talk about let's back up actually. Let's go back to what you said about the Ultimate Drill book. So how did you land this position? Where are you coming from? What's sort of the backstory there?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty funny how I got this job. Honestly, it was a Facebook ad that kind of came across my feed. At the time, the position was called Creative Media Designer. And I had been working at UTSA as like a multimedia specialist. And at the time, I wasn't really looking for a new job, but I thought this was interesting because I've always wanted to blend my passion of music and media together. So yeah, I went to Texas A&M Kingsville, was originally a jazz studies major and wanted to pursue performance full time, and later in life transitioned to pursue a media career. And I've always wanted to find kind of that middle ground to blend those two together. And so seeing that Ultimate Drill book was heavily in the marching arts and created essentially a position that could do that, I put my name on the hat, and then I'm here. And so I've been really, really lucky to have gotten the opportunity, and I'm really fortunate to be working for a team that's super passionate about like the marching arts and music education.
That is so cool. So I'm diving into the world of social media management and things like that. I'm getting ready to partner with my aunt who has a real estate brokerage, and I'm getting ready to set up her YouTube channel and kind of chopping up all that into short form content and putting it everywhere and optimizing, all the SEO things. So I'm just curious, like this sparks a lot of curiosity and excitement. What are all of your responsibilities, or just like the gist?
Wow, there's a lot there. Essentially, I run the Ultimate Drill book, like social media, from the Instagram, the TikTok, the Facebook, and then we have Beam, which is our sheet music app, and Stride TV. And so all these three little like pillars or products within the company have their own social media profiles. So I'm managing at least 3 to 4 profiles per product that we have. And so not only am I managing that from a social media side, but I also we make our content in-house. I mean, we do collaborate with a lot of other people, but as of right now, we are expanding our team. And so we're about to hire a video editor, a sales and admin assistant, and a graphic designer. So our team is constantly growing, and I'm essentially going to be in charge of the media team, which is really exciting. We also have a studio, which is a creative media production space in Austin, Texas. And so not only do I also manage that space, but we also run some productions within that space, including Femme Forte. So yeah, like the day-to-day responsibilities kind of range anywhere from creating content, editing videos, creating copy for those videos or for email, as well as running Femme Forte on the side. So yeah, there's a lot there, but it's awesome to be so well versed and learn so much on the different like marketing and creative fronts.
Yeah, especially when it comes to copy too, because like I'm sure as someone who studied multimedia, it in my mind it doesn't sound like they might have taught you copy, did they?
In college, no. I switched majors from being a jazz studies performance major to communications, and then got a business administration minor. So I did take a couple of marketing classes, but copy was honestly one of the things that I have had to learn, like being in the field.
Yeah.
I'm sure that other college courses, or depending on whatever university you go to, might teach some sort of creative writing, but from my personal experience, it's definitely something that I've had to learn like on the job.
Nice. Sorry, Jackie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So my question now is, kind of going into the Femme Forte podcast. Let's talk about that a little bit. Whose idea was it? Where did that get started from?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was my idea. It was formulated in September of 2022 in my bedroom. And
Perfect creative space.
I've always known that I've wanted to do podcasting. I've listened to podcasts kind of throughout college, growing up, and I just knew that podcasting, as the rise of podcasts were starting to happen, I wanted to create my own, as I am like an artist in many forms, whether it's being a musician or like a video editor or photographer. Podcasting was just another medium and source of creativity. And so at first, the original idea was to honestly talk to people who worked in like drum corps media and like just gear out and talk about all like different kind of cameras and editing and stuff like that. But really, for me, I wanted to find a greater purpose behind my podcast. And within working for Ultimate Drill Book, I had a lot of different it started with talking to a lot of different women band directors, and that's kind of where the idea sparked. Was all the time at TMEA or Midwest Clinic, I would talk to women band directors, and the joke goes, I'm like, yeah, let's get a couple of podcast mics in front of us and like record this conversation, because it was really cool to hear their experience and just also listen to whatever they had to say. And that was something that I really believe deserved a platform. So Femme Forte started as talking to women band directors and talking about how they got there, giving advice about teaching, especially as we know as first year teachers, even fifth year teachers, like sometimes we don't feel like we know what we're doing or, haven't figured it all out. And so that's where the first season kind of took off and started with. And since then, I've always said this, but I believe that Femme Forte is more than just a podcast. It's a movement of empowering women in our space, in the music and art space. And so we're constantly growing. So I will always interview women band directors, but we're more than just that now. Now I started to interview actresses. I've started to interview dancers. I want to start to interview stand-up comedians. I mean, because when you think about it, everybody comes from some source of the art, whether it's the art of podcasting, whether it's the art of stand-up comedy because you're performing. And so really being able to hone in on their accomplishments and achievements, but also hearing their experience of how they got there. Like the interview that I finished with the actress from LA, she's like, a lot of people ask me about the work that I'm in, but not a lot of people ask me about my acting and my passion for acting or my career course and how I was able to get to where I am now. And so I'm really excited for that episode to come out because it was a really good conversation. And I think a lot of things that people out there in the world or just don't have the resources for, or it's not really truly being talked about in our space.
That's really awesome.
I think that's so true what she said about like the acting with so many actresses. Like you look at not just actresses, singers and anything, and you look at people and you look at these interviews on, common news shows, TV shows or whatever, entertainment news, television, all that sort of stuff. And like they really do ask the weirdest questions of women sometimes. And it's like, why don't you ask them about like, their career and how they got there, the work they've put in, but they're asking like about their weight, or they're asking about, how the business treats them and stuff like that. And it's like, that's just, I really like that you've seen that and decided to do something about it and provide a space for those more uplifting conversations to take place.
Yeah, and that's really, the whole point of Femme Forte is I'm never going to be that podcast, and I will stop if I am, that podcast to spread negativity or to be like a gossip channel or to out someone, right? It's about uplifting them with the most positive conversations and highlighting them in a truly amazing way, whether it's giving them the spotlight or giving them the mic literally. And so, yeah, I truly want to spread positivity and show them the love. And it's really cool not only to highlight them on my platform, but also to see the social media response, like when I promote their episode or when I promote their clips. Like, for instance, the women band directors, we see former students and current students just like show the love. Like, I know, like, as women, as band directors in general, how many times do they get to see or hear their students give them that great feedback or get that appreciation? So it's cool to be able for them to see that from a social media side, but also for people who have never heard about them before to also be following them or hear their name, because that's what this is all about.
That's really awesome. What do you feel like your what do you feel like your 5-year kind of plan looks like? You do a lot, and it sounds like your passion project is definitely Femme Forte, but I get the sense that you really love being in charge of media at UDB. So what does that look like for you? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of my 5-year plan, and this was actually a part of the interview process for UDB, was I've kind of hit it early, and I'm kind of figuring out what the next steps are, because the joke goes is when I got interviewed, they asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, oh, I would love to be some kind of director role, some kind of managerial role, leading a video production team, leading a media team. And yeah, that 5 years turned into 5 months, and here I am. And so I'm already a director of media. And so it's like, oh, great. I hit that goal early. Where do I go from here? And so truly and honestly, I just kind of, as our team is expanding, I want to keep growing the team. I want to be able to keep growing that team exponentially, whether it's with, new hires, or whether it's growing the team and us creating higher level productions. I'm someone who definitely does not know everything, and am constantly learning and growing in the media realm. And so I'm really excited for some of the things that UDB is working on, and not only that will help me grow professionally as a person, in my career, but it's also helped me grow personally as a person. And so I'm really excited to see where that goes. But also I'm really fortunate that Luke and Josh really believe and support the mission that Femme Forte is. And so I really, truly want to grow that. Again, I want it to be something that's outside of a podcast. I'm already starting to do some speaking events here and there. And so I kind of want to really push on that and grow Femme Forte bigger than it is, because I have such a vision for it, and I would love to see that vision for it come true.
Very cool.
That's great. And so polished, I feel like, just looking at your social media, when I came across your podcast the first time, I was immediately intrigued because of the way everything looked and everything was put together. And you clearly have set out. Yeah. You clearly have set out to create your image and not let somebody else tell you what your image is going to be, which I think people don't teach girls that the same way they do with boys, especially, but just in general, we don't learn, hey, this is how, present yourself the way you want to be presented and show yourself to the world. So with that part being said, what has been sort of the biggest learning curve that you've had in creating this space for yourself?
Yeah, a lot, not only from a podcast production standpoint, but honestly, it's funny that you say that, because one of the episodes with Rachel Taylor from Girls March, how she learned that with Girls March and how she created that, it really taught her self-love and self-confidence. And I feel like Femme Forte is doing the same for me. And that's what I try to project as much as I can. And me being the host of Femme Forte is showing what a strong, confident woman looks like. But in my personal life, I try to practice that every day, but we all know that some of us get imposter syndrome, and I'm a huge person who gets that a lot. And so with Femme Forte, not only has that helped improve my self-confidence by having these amazing guests and having the confidence to approach some of these really big names in the industry, but yeah, it's kind of just taught me to be more confident in not only my knowledge of media and now podcasting, but just confidence, because people do believe what I'm trying to do with Femme Forte. And it's honestly such a humbling experience to see that people are passionate and love what I'm trying to share.
I really love that you brought up imposter syndrome. I feel like it's so relatable. So can we dig into that a little more?
Absolutely.
What do you feel like you're impostering?
Impostering? Oh, there's so many things, but if I could say the biggest thing right now, it would honestly be the fact that some people call me a professional in the media and podcasting space. I mean, Femme Forte, the idea has existed since September, but really it's only been out since last June. And so we're not even a year in yet that Femme Forte has existed. I'm so, so fortunate that it is growing at the rate that it is growing. And it's so awesome to see that. But yeah, there are days where I do ask myself, like, is this good enough? Like, am I really the expert when I haven't even had a full year of experience in it yet? And even as like a media professional, like it's really cool to be able to have the opportunity to lead a media team and to have the experience that I do have under my belt for people to be comfortable to come to me for advice. But in all actuality, like I'm only about to turn 24 this year. And
that was going to be my next question is, and how old are you with all of this going on?
And so like, yes, it's so cool to be able to say that I graduated college early at 21 and, have been in the workforce for as long as I've had, because I got my first job while I was in college, like in the media field. So I'm very, very fortunate for those opportunities. But I do know that like I am younger than most people I hang around with, or most people who are working in the industry. And so, yeah, that definitely does come up pretty frequently. It is my young age and how that implements into the many different things. But with like the metrics and the performance and the results that I've been able to push out, whether it's through UDB or whether it's for Femme Forte, like, and people also verbally reassuring and giving me that appreciation that they do see that work does definitely help a lot to make myself more confident and comfortable speaking my experience.
Yeah. That was so vulnerable. Thanks. Do you ever feel like a lot, like some of the imposter syndrome might come from the fact that people are projecting their idea of you and you feel like a pressure to like rise up to that instead of just sitting in, nope, this is what I'm doing. I have earned being where I am, but at the same time, I don't feel like an expert because maybe I'm not yet. And I'm not saying that you are or you aren't, but like as someone who has also dealt with imposter syndrome, I've like thought a lot about this. And I feel like sometimes it's like how we see ourselves versus how other people see us. So I'm wondering what your take on that might be.
Yeah, and you mentioned a good part about being vulnerable, because that's definitely another thing that I've had to learn. When people get to know me, a lot of people say that I'm a very open book, but there's definitely a lot of things that my surface level, if someone gets to meet me, is very like open book style, but there's a lot of things that I kind of, reserve and keep private for myself. And so through the podcast, I've learned to be more vulnerable. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that at least my friends and the people that know me have told me that they really like about the podcast is how genuine and authentic I am. And really, as someone who I used to have a YouTube channel like a long time ago, but like being a YouTuber was like never my thing. So I've always been behind the camera and never in front. And so, putting myself out there, putting, this passion project out there and really learning how to be vulnerable to the public eye is something I've definitely had to learn and be more comfortable with, and learn what my boundaries, what I'm comfortable willing to share and what I'm not comfortable sharing. And so that has been definitely an eye-opening experience that I've had to learn a lot. And so to your point, and to answer your question, like I'm constantly learning that every day, and all I can ever ask of myself is to be as genuine and authentic as possible, because I think a lot now that media and content creation has become so massive and so many people are putting themselves out there in the pool, not to call out on people, but I know some people can tell when people are being genuine and when they aren't. And I think the biggest thing for me is to always be as genuine and as authentic as I possibly can be. And that's all I can ask for, because the right people will come around who want to support me and what I do. And then, because if I'm not myself, I don't want those, followers that only are attracted to this idea of me that's not me. So yeah,
that's a good point.
The right people will come around as long as I keep being myself.
Absolutely.
I love that. I feel like it took me, being on social media for as long as I have, it took me having a child to realize that like you can be authentic though without giving away every single detail of your life, and you can be a genuine person. And I feel like you do that, like in your content, in your podcast. I feel like you are genuine in everything that you do. And also you're still keeping some of yourself for yourself. You don't have to share it with everybody. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Sorry, Jackie.
Who would you say was the person who you interviewed that maybe like stood out to you a lot and like maybe influenced you a lot, maybe like kind of helped shape who you are, or who you want to become, maybe help you set some goals? What's just an interview that you've done that really just sticks out to you, that maybe you want to give a shout out to them for doing something, or if you want our listeners to go listen to like one interview, who would you want them to go listen to on your podcast?
Yeah. So, there's so many people that have been on my podcast that have been amazing. And I'll say two people for two very different reasons. The first one being Dr. Jansen. I believe she's like the second episode that when the podcast first came out, and it was just so amazing to interview her because she was my professor in college, and being able to give back and to shine a light on her was something that just felt so good inside, because not only was she a part of, and we talk about this in the episode, Jump Camp, which was actually an all-female music camp that actually really helped me understand the true impact of surrounding myself with women in the music space, but also was a huge guiding light and mentor throughout my college experience. Like, it was just so amazing to have the light shine on her when she has given me so much. So yeah, to give back to my community and to give back to her was a really, really special experience for me. And so we just had a blast. And as someone who normally doesn't like the spotlight on her, it was just amazing to be like, no, you're going to be in the spotlight and I'm going to talk about how amazing you are. And so it was really cool to be able to do that. And so, yeah, that was awesome and very, very special.
And can people find the episode just by typing in her name with like Femme Forte?
Yes, yes, her name is Dr. Elizabeth Jansen, Janzen.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was awesome. And then another episode is, I'm not sure if it's going to be out yet by the time this is out, is the actress. I went to LA for the first time this year to interview two guests, and that was like the first time. I mean, I do travel a lot, and Femme Forte is on the road, like when I'm on the road with EDB, but this trip that I made was like just for Femme Forte, and it was so much fun. This actress, her name is Nicole Younger, and while I don't know her like well from a personal standpoint, it was so cool to be able to interview her, because not only have I looked up to her, she used to host a podcast that I used to listen to in college, but also the TV shows that she's been on. I've seen her acting career, and I've also seen her from a podcasting standpoint. So to be able to be in a place where I'm like, yeah, I interviewed one of my idols, was really, really cool to be able to say. Yeah.
What shows has she been on?
She's been on like Criminal Minds, Westworld. I think it's called Call Me Kate or Call Me Kat or something like that. But yeah, she guest starred on Good Trouble on Hulu. So it was really, really cool to be able to interview her and get her story from the acting and like from stage to screen perspective.
Did you just like send her a DM or something? How did you guys connect?
I did. I've been following her for a while, and that's another thing that I've learned is sometimes, with the way that you reach out, I just DM a bunch of people on Instagram, and yes, I get a bunch of no's, but it's those people who say yes and give you a chance. So you're like, oh yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah,
that's really
well.
neat.
I have absolute mad respect for what you do. I love seeing your passion. If people want to go find you on social media, they just follow at Femme Forte.
At Femme Forte Podcast.
At Femme
on
Forte
Instagram,
Podcast.
TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all the things.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming in so much. It's so good to meet you, and I can't wait to see where you go with what you're doing, because I think this is such a thing that we need in our community, and not just our community, but like the greater society as a whole. So
yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Nice to meet you.
All right, guys, get back out on the field. We are going to wrap it up for Women's History Month with a beautiful run of the ballad. See you there.
Hey, this is Christine Ream.
And Chris Green.
Guard Closet was founded as a consignment business in 2000. Since then, it has grown to include winter guard, band, percussion, and other genres.
We can help you with custom flag and costuming designs.
Our consignment inventory has plenty of great looks for your color guard, drumline, and marching band.
Pay it forward. When you purchase consignment, you help other programs. Last year, we sold over 400 sets of consignments and returned over $125,000 in payments to our consigners for their sales.
Additionally, Guard Closet offers custom and pre-designed costumes, flags, floors, and formal wear, full or partial show writing, educational programming, and other services.
Max out your rehearsal time and set up a microsite for easy student ordering for shoes, gloves, and other equipment.
The Guard Closet team is here to help you get everything you want and need for your season. Check us out at guardcloset.com and follow us on social media.
Everybody wave goodbye to Amanda. She was amazing. I know we're going to miss her so much. That interview, like, I knew she was cool just from like looking at her Instagram and listening to her podcast, but I didn't realize she was that cool. Like, I don't know. Have you guys seen her Instagram or listened to her podcast yet? For Femme Forte? You seriously go do it, because she really, like, she has everything polished, and granted, like, that's like what she does, you know. She's on for UDB, and is she doing, I don't even know, I didn't think to ask her if she's doing any of the drum corps social medias. She's probably too busy with UDB, honestly.
So I've spoken to Amanda before. She's in, I had mentioned earlier, the like the giant, it's called the Marching Arts Media Discord, but I know she's a member of that. I imagine with Ultimate Drill Book, like a lot of people, with the tough thing with drum corps social media is balancing that and, you know, a full-time job. So
yes,
can't really, and the pay isn't a ton compared to a full-time job. So it's definitely tough for the people. Like,
I totally know what you mean, actually.
Yep. Well, let's get into that. Okay. So let's go back to our new segment that we started just a couple weeks ago. We're going to basically, for people who haven't listened to the last few episodes, this new segment is called What Are We Doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
And we're going to go off against something that's bugging us in the marching arts. And Sam, if you want to start us off.
Yeah. So I was hoping I could lead into this. So something that is kind of an epidemic in activities that people are very passionate about, which, as someone who comes from the teaching world, I fully have been a victim of, hey, you this thing you love, because you love it, we're going to take advantage of you and get away with it because you're going to put up with a lot knowing that you get to do the thing you love. And so a thing that's really prominent in our activity as well, especially with drum corps, there's a lot of offers for, you'll see job listings that don't specify that the person is not going to get paid. Right. And it usually doesn't come up until much later in the interview process. So I actually have, I applied, I'm not going to name names, but there was a drum corps that I applied for a year ago for it was actually an audio position. And originally it was a paid position. And then I remember a month later, it became an unpaid position. And then a month after that, it turned into, actually, you're going to have to pay us because the knowledge you're going to gain is so valuable.
No.
Wow.
So I did not continue on with that. I was very lucky at Blue Knights. The media team is paid at Blue Knights. The media team is paid at Santa Clara Vanguard. But media is a big caption because it's newer. That's not necessarily budgeted into drum corps budgets, which is so strange to me because if you're trying to grow something, you would think that you you would want to market it.
Yeah.
And so we like to think of ourselves not just as the media team, not just, the people who take photos, but like we're also the marketing department for your organization.
Yeah.
And so not investing money into marketing is always something that's really baffled me.
Mm-hmm.
Like
and we
they're
get away
doing
with
you
it.
a big favor.
Yeah, we get away with it in the marching arts because people come to drum corps is not something people walk into off the street and apply for a job. Like they do it because it's something they probably are already familiar with, something they are in love with. And because of that, we get to take advantage of that and say, well, would you love it so much? Wouldn't you be willing to do it for free? And, inevitably young people get roped into that and they say yes.
Yeah.
And then we continue getting away with it. But there are so many positions out there that are kind of credited as, well, it's a learning opportunity. Sure, so is a job. I mean, at Blue Nights, it was my first summer on a drum corps media team, and I learned so much, and I also got paid. Those two things can happen at the same time. So that's those are my feelings on that. I don't know if anyone has similar experiences or.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
No.
I would get paid for some of the things that I do. Nobody's offering yet. Come on. Social media is so huge. And I don't know if it's because it's so new. I mean, it's not so new, but I don't understand. I mean, kids are going to college now and getting degrees and going to work in social media. Like they're having careers made out of social media. And yet to hear that drum corps are saying, in some instances, obviously, that we don't need to pay you for this. This is valuable to you for your experience.
Or that you need to pay us. I can't believe that.
At some
That's
point,
crazy.
Yeah, at some point, at what point does that stop? And we start getting paid for our content. And
I think that is hinting at like a bigger, what are we doing? Like you said, no one looks at it traditionally as the marketing team. No one is like traditionally thinking, how can this group make money? No one is like really trying to think about that at all. And it's like
the only reason I would suggest to pivot there, not in the money side, but that the activity has, shrinking over time. There's less drum corps than there were 10 years ago, and there's many less drum corps than there were 40 years ago. And so there's definitely got to be, if the current approach isn't working, there's definitely got to be a new approach to the way that we grow this activity.
Right.
Those my thoughts there.
I agree. And that kind of brings me towards my what are we doing, which is like, I feel like the whole activity has kind of a hesitancy towards change. And mine was thinking more about like the music that we play and how, there's a big time bias, like some sort of selection bias towards playing stuff that is like valued in like these collegiate chambers where, highbrow, intellectual, people thinking about music are like, wow, this is the best music we could play. This is like fantastic music that we need our drum corps to play. Meanwhile, though, like, I bet that if we just played something that was a little bit more entertainment value driven, maybe something a little bit more popularly recognizable, you might actually find that people on social media watch it. Or maybe people that aren't from the band world or aren't musicians actually enjoy watching a drum corps performance. But for some reason, it's viewed as lowbrow when BD has a pop star moment for 30 seconds in the show with a Lady Gaga sample, or it's viewed as not being artistically valid. It's like, okay, so this is not good enough for like a couple people who, really do have great musical minds, have devoted their life to music, but like, who are we? What are we doing? What are we doing this for? Who are we doing this for? There's so many more people out there that don't care about like, Bach's Eighth Symphony or whatever. It's like, not again. We don't need to do it again. We've been doing this forever. I think that maybe we should just try to make drum corps more accessible to the average audience member. And then, maybe this would be something that's more sustainable or there's more interest around.
Are we gatekeeping from our audiences even?
A little bit.
I was going to say, I think there's a drum corps that does a very good job at that, and it's Blue Coats.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of the it's not like this traditional band style thing, but like in 2019 they did a Beatles show, and it was awesome. Like it almost won.
Yes.
And so it's silly to say that like, well, if you just do pop music, you're not. The Bluecoats were like 0.1 away from winning in 2019 with entirely pop music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the
you know,
thing that
it's
I think then. I think it's almost a cop-out for not being creative. It's like, oh, I need to play this really difficult symphonic music so that we can get a good music score.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you need to just creatively write a book that
Because the
flourishes
music
upon these
judge-
ideas.
Because the music judge was either a music ed or music performance major in college and
he's the person
studied
that's in
all
those
that
chambers.
repertoire, and
Yeah.
they think they're appealing to him. Now, that brings up another discussion. You know, are we writing the show for the judges or are we writing the show for the audience? And that's a whole another day. But
Is the
that's-
activity sustainable if we keep writing our every show for the judges? Or, you know, should
How much
we
are the
in
judges
general
paying for their tickets?
negative
Right.
$800 that
yeah,
weekend?
This is all backwards. Our interns are paying to be there, and we're paying judges. Maybe this is all backwards.
Yeah, I agree. What are we doing?
What are we doing?
All right. I think it's a good time. Let's get into the news here.
all right.
Okay, so we mentioned earlier in the show this big thing called the Super Bowl happened, and Cindy's going to be our first story since you brought a story that relates to that.
Yeah. And I don't know if y'all know, but I've been a longtime follower of HBCU colleges, historically Black colleges and universities. Their bands have a unique sound. If you don't follow them, you need to follow them. My first experience was years ago when my daughter was at Leander. It was a Bands of America competition, and you know how they bring in an exhibition band, and it's always a college band. Well, they brought in A&M Prairie. Now I can't think. Prairie. Well, anyway. And that was my first experience with HBCU colleges and their incredible music. So when I was watching the Super Bowl Sunday night, I immediately recognized those kids from Jackson State University, and I couldn't believe that Usher had them in his show. And you talk about a secret. Like, these kids were able to keep this a secret, and they were able to learn and film this show and learn the steps. It was obviously a huge endeavor, and but that was the coolest thing. I literally screamed when I was watching and saw these kids. I was like, is that Jackson State? And and I was just thrilled for them. And it's just so cool. They're getting more and more recognition, and it's just, that was the coolest that they got to go out there for Usher. And we need more of that. We need more college bands and bands in general. We in our NFL teams. I know we have a few, but we need more. We need more.
That's what I've been saying.
We do.
I thought that was really cool. Like, when I was watching it, everyone always is like, we need to have drum corps in the Super Bowl halftime show. And I was like, look, they're doing it. In the only practical way possible. It's actually happening right now. They're doing drum corps on the camera during the halftime show. Kind of. You know, it's not drum corps, I guess. It's college marching band.
Yeah.
But for what it's worth, we actually had marching arts on display on actually the biggest TV broadcast of all time, which
Does
is,
anybody know?
kind of a W.
Does Usher have like marching band experience?
I don't know.
Hey Siri.
That's a great question.
Because I wonder, because my thought is, like, all of these musical artists that we get to perform, they have some sort of background. They started somewhere. You know, I'm sure a lot of them probably started in their high school band at some point.
Oh, that's
yeah.
crazy. I have such a close to home story about that. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but a guy from my high school drumline, he was my center snare when I was a freshman, is now like producing for Drake all the time. He's like Drake's back pocket producer.
Wow.
I love it.
Drake, Travis Scott, Yeet, if you know that guy. But it's like absolutely surreal. Like I see posts on his Facebook, and it's like back in 2012 when he was tapping off the Upper Darby snare line, and now he's like, dude should have got a Grammy last week. He got snubbed. My center snare from 2013 got snubbed.
Well, I want to get somebody from the Sonic Boom of the South on this pod. So if anybody's got any connections, I have been messaging on social media, and their social media is blowing up too. So they're probably probably not getting any of my messages, but I've been trying to contact them. If anybody knows anybody, tell them Jackie wants to talk to them personally, also on the pod. Emily, what do you got for us?
Yes, so I feel like this is a warning to never get in the way of a marching band in the middle of a performance. There was a bit of a oops that happened during a Mardi Gras parade where there was actually video footage of a on-duty police officer shoving somebody mid-parade, and it's like, what? That's not cool. Everybody knows when the band comes a marching, you move out the way. I just feel like that's just the unsung rule about that. Anyway, so it seems like he was properly reprimanded for that, but still, don't shove band kids. That's not cool.
Trish, you got some news on the DCI all age front?
I'm all in on the DCI all age front, especially the Skyliners, who are a little bit near and dear to my heart, as I still technically on paper am the color guard instructor for the alumni corps, although we don't have a color guard right now, but I guess on paper I'm still. So yeah, I couldn't wait to talk about what the competing corps is up to. They have announced their show, which is going to be sort of, it's really an interesting concept, especially in light of what's happening. And it's called One Day I'll Fly, and it's kind of based on the metamorphosis of a, caterpillar into a butterfly. And they really, they have some really cool tunes they're going to play. Obviously, One Day I'll Fly from Moulin Rouge. And it talks about the whole metamorphosis. And isn't that just a great topic for a DCI all-age corps to take on this summer? Because they are, the entire DCI all-age category is taking on a metamorphosis, transitioning from what they were as drum corps associates into the all-age genre, and I think that's a really good show for them. But getting back to what we were saying earlier about, picking rep, they sound a little bit like they're trying to drink the Kool-Aid here, because there is a quote from Tim Allen that says, we just can't play 42nd Street anymore, and tunes like that. I mean, the classic Skyliner sound, the classic Skyliner sound, which I'm really familiar with from being with the alumni corps, the old classics, I guess they just really feel are not going to work, going up against what we were talking about earlier. Yeah. These corps picking this, really difficult and, challenging rap compared to, the Bluecoats being just as successful, even more so, playing a Beatles show. So kind of all ties together here, but it's going to be really interesting to see if other all-age corps kind of take that approach away from the traditional DCA type rep into this new. So it's all very interesting. So let's see what happens.
And Sam, you've got something that ties into this a little bit.
Yeah, whenever I hear Skyliners, being from the Midwest, I think of the similar name drum corps, the Sky Riders, who are from Hutchinson, Kansas, and they've had kind of a committee going pretty recently to revive that drum corps. So I don't know the timeline or anything like that, but I know that the Sky Riders, I think they were active in the 90s, if I'm not wrong.
And very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's not a ton of drum corps in that area of the Midwest. Like the Missouri, Kansas area is it's kind of like a drought for drum corps and opportunities like that. So I know the Skyriders, that's something that people, guard directors in the Midwest, like they have clinics. They're trying to get that drum corps running again. Hopefully that happens, as someone from Missouri who there's no drum corps in Missouri.
Oh,
so that would be a really cool thing.
That'd be really great to see.
And there's so much talent, like marching band and winter guard, indoor drumline, everything is so big here. We have a huge winter circuit, and like we have so much marching band, like every small school. I mean, and all the way to the big schools too, but I'm talking every school has a marching band, and it's like they're competing and they're getting up at 2:00 in the morning to drive 3 hours to go to a marching band competition for an entire day. So we've got a lot of dedicated kids. We
have one of the best high school marching bands in the country, Blue Springs, and then we have, like, for Independent Open last year with Winter Guard, we had 2 guards in the top 5.
Yeah.
So it's it's not like we have nothing.
Right. Yeah, we've got so much. I feel like we can support a drum corps. We just got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, do you want to wrap up with your story?
Yeah. So my story is something I've been talking about for years, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the rising heat each summer taking the temperature of the future of drum corps is the name of this article that DCI posted earlier this week, I guess just yesterday as we record this. So they did some research and did an interview with Dr. Kevin Klosel, who's the director of Oklahoma Climatological Survey and a meteorologist for the Oklahoma University Department of Campus Safety. So he's also working as part of DCI's Marching Arts Safety and Health Initiative. And he sat down with DCI's Dan Potter to discuss some issues related to weather patterns and the summer drum corps tour schedule. So their conversation, kind of touches on the biggest issues that this expert thinks drum corps as an activity faces due to the tour getting hotter. And like, I at least can personally vouch for the fact that when I was on tour in Texas, it was almost unfeasibly hot, and it seems to get a little bit more so every summer. Like, we're already amending shows to not have uniforms, to push back start times to after sunset when we get into the real peak of the hottest parts of tour. And kind of what Dr. Kevin Klosel ends up recommending is that what we need to do as time goes on is be flexible and be willing to make those same changes to the actual rehearsal schedule and how we rehearse, period, in drum corps, rather than just how we handle the shows in Texas. And he says, like, trying to prioritize how you lay out the day as a director, as a battery coordinator, as whomever, thus that maybe in the middle of the day, we're front-ending the most intellectual work and the least physical work that we can do. And then how do we then work during the most cool times of day to clean up on the most physical things we need to do? Like, I think that's obviously compatible with how we already do ensemble at night most of the time. It's already a thing that everyone does. But how can you continue to build on that idea as a staff and really be smart about not making your kids do the most physical work possible during the hottest part of the day? This climatologist is suggesting that, this summer and every summer moving forward, we need to be even more and more cognizant of how we should structure rehearsal kind of around the rising and falling temperatures of the daytime. He wraps the article and Dan Potter asks him, he says, just to put an exclamation point on all of this, heat is now the number one weather-related killer. And Klosel expands to say that, yes, it actually even dwarfs all the other weather events combined. You could take tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding, cold, in general in the world for all of humanity. Just being too hot is usually the big problem when it comes to weather-related, death. So it's clearly something that as time goes on, we need to take more and more seriously. Maybe we can take the baby steps now in figuring out how we structure our rehearsals around the hottest parts of the day.
or we can figure out how to raise enough funding to get everyone in closed rehearsal spaces just for
Are you
drum
talking
corps.
about Blue Coat's residency at the Sphere in Vegas?
Yes.
Ooh.
I
I'd be
love
about
that idea.
I'd be about that.
Last summer at Blue Nights, when we were in San Antonio, the middle block, like that middle 4-hour block in the middle of the day, we just let them go back to bed, and then we had ensemble at night. So we did a visual in the morning. We had nap block in the middle of the day, and then we did ensemble, and we made finals.
Wow.
Nice.
So it's,
So
it's
all the other
not the
drum
end
corps,
of your
take
summer.
note and listen.
The
that
drum
you can
corps
do it and you can be
siesta.
good.
I like that. That's yeah, honestly, man, we might need to move to something like that. That might be the best way to take use of your time.
It was productive. It was like, hey, if we can get our work done in the morning and at night, like, don't worry
Did you guys
about it.
wake up earlier
Do the
or
hottest
rehearse
part?
later?
No,
Okay.
not at all. We
just
didn't
cut
wake
the
up early
time.
at Blue Nights ever.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Very
I should
much.
have known that. I should have known.
This West Coast drum corps.
All right, everybody. So thanks for a great rehearsal this week. Thank you to our hosts, Emily, Trish, Cindy, and Steven. Sam, thank you for being our guest host this week. Where can our listeners go to follow you on your amazing social medias?
So on TikTok or Instagram, I go by @SMohlerMedia, SMOHLER Media. And then quick shout out to on TikTok, follow the account @Santa Clara Vanguard.
Yeah.
I'm going to see a lot of awesome content there this summer. Thank you to Amanda. You can find her at Femme4Te Podcast and, of course, on the UDB social media. Go subscribe, write us a review, and share this with a friend. Make sure you follow us on our social media @On a Water Break, and we'll see you at the next rehearsal on a water break.
Go practice.
Go practice.
The On a Water Break podcast was produced by Jeremy Williams and Christine Reed. The intro and outro music was produced by Josh Lyda. To learn more, visit lydamusic.com. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.